The sky above the ancient world was always gray. It was not a stormy gray, and it was not dark like night. It was the color of old stone, calm and heavy, as if the sky itself was watching everything below. The ground beneath the sky was smooth and wide, shaped long ago by hands that no longer existed. Tall broken pillars surrounded a circular platform at the center of the plain. This place was older than memory, older than most languages, and older than fear. At the center of the platform stood the artifact. It was not large. It was no taller than a human chest, and it had no sharp edges. Its surface looked like polished glass mixed with metal, but it reflected no faces. Soft lines of light moved slowly inside it, like thoughts drifting through a sleeping mind. Many species had studied it, guarded it, and feared it. None of them truly understood it. They only knew one thing. The artifact always demanded a price. Lyra stood a few steps away from it, her hands resting calmly at her sides. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like still water. Her eyes were wide and dark, shaped differently from human eyes, but filled with the same quiet awareness. She was young by her people's standards, though she had been preparing for this moment since childhood. She did not cry. She did not shake. She had accepted her role long ago. Around the platform stood representatives of many worlds. Some were tall and thin, others wide and heavy. Some breathed air, others did not. They kept a respectful distance, forming a wide circle. No one spoke. No one moved closer. This moment was sacred and also uncomfortable. A few steps behind Lyra stood a human. His name was Elias Morgan. He wore a simple exploration suit, marked with the symbol of Earth. He was not a soldier. He carried no weapon. His role was to observe, to learn, and to report. Humans had only recently joined the wider galactic community, and Elias had volunteered for this mission because he believed understanding others mattered more than power. At first, he had watched in silence, but the longer he stood there, the heavier his chest felt. Lyra's people believed that her life was linked to the artifact. They believed her presence could weaken it, and that her final act could end its influence forever. This belief had been passed down through generations, supported by old records and stories of past attempts that had failed without sacrifice. To them, it was simple: one life for many worlds. Elias had heard the explanation many times. He understood the logic. Humans had made similar choices in their own past, but standing here, watching Lyra stare at the artifact with calm acceptance, something inside him refused to stay quiet. She was not a symbol. She was a person. A soft tone echoed across the platform. It was a signal, gentle but clear. The time was near. Lyra took a slow breath. Her people stood taller, filled with a mix of pride and sadness. To them, she was brave. She was fulfilling her purpose. Elias took a step forward. The sound of his boot against the stone was loud in the silence. Several beings turned toward him. Some showed surprise. Others showed irritation. A few showed concern. Lyra turned her head slightly and looked at him. Her expression was calm, but curious. "You should stay back," one of her elders said, speaking through a translator field. "This moment must not be disturbed." Elias opened his mouth, then closed it again. His heart was beating fast. He had not planned this. He had only felt it. "I need to ask something," he said. The elder's eyes narrowed.
"Everything has been explained."
"Not to her," Elias replied, looking at Lyra. Lyra blinked slowly. "I know what must be done," she said. Her voice was soft, steady, and clear. I was taught since I was small. Elias nodded. You were taught, he repeated. But were you ever asked? A low murmur moved through the gathered observers. The question was strange to them. To many species, duty was stronger than choice. Lyra hesitated for the first time.
I was told it was an honor, she said. I was told it would save others. I'm not saying that isn't what you believe, Elias said gently.
I'm asking if anyone ever gave you another option. The elder stepped forward. Human, this is not your place. Elias turned to face the elder. With respect, you invited humanity to observe. Observing doesn't mean turning away when something feels wrong. The artifact's inner light shifted slightly, responding to the rising emotion in the air. Elias noticed. Most others did not. He looked back at the artifact, then at Lyra. Has anyone ever tried to understand what this thing really reacts to? He asked. Or did everyone just accept the oldest explanation because it was easier? The records are clear, the elder said. When one of her kind offered herself, the artifact weakened. But it never disappeared, Elias said. That means the solution was never complete. Silence followed his words. Lyra looked down at her hands. It always returns, she said quietly.
We prepare the next one. Elias felt a tight pain in his chest. That's not a solution, he said.
That's a cycle. The artifact's light pulsed again, slightly brighter this time. Elias stepped closer to the platform, careful and slow. No one stopped him. They were too uncertain now. He raised his hand, not to touch the artifact, but to feel the air around it. It's not asking for your life, he said. It's feeding on something else. The elder shook his head. You cannot know that. I can observe, Elias replied. That's what humans do. We question patterns. We look for what doesn't change. Lyra looked up at him. What do you think it wants? Elias met her eyes. I think it wants you to believe you have no choice. The words hung in the air. The artifact's light slowed, as if listening. No one spoke for a long moment. Lyra's breathing changed. It became uneven, not from fear, but from confusion. If I step away, she said, and it harms others, that would be my fault. Elias shook his head.
No, that would be the artifact's fault.
And the fault of everyone who decided your life was the price instead of looking for another way. The elder raised his voice. Enough! This delay risks everything. Elias turned sharply. Mina, what risks? Everything is never questioning old answers. The artifact pulsed again, stronger this time. A faint hum filled the platform, low and steady. Several observers stepped back. Elias noticed something important then. The artifact reacted more when emotions rose, not when bodies moved closer. It was not responding to Lyra's presence, alone. It was responding to the belief that her sacrifice was unavoidable. He took a slow breath and lowered his voice. Lyra, he said, if there was another way, would you want to live? The question was simple. No one had ever asked it. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in her life, her future was not a single straight line. I don't know, she said honestly. That honesty changed something. The artifact's light flickered. Elias smiled, just a little. Not knowing means the story isn't finished yet. The elder looked unsettled. Human, you are interfering with destiny. Elias looked back at him.
Humans learned something long ago, he said. Destiny is just a word people use when they're afraid to imagine change.
The hum from the artifact deepened. then softened, as if uncertain. Lyra took one small step back from the platform. Nothing exploded. Nothing collapsed. The sky did not fall. The artifact dimmed slightly. Gasps spread through the gathered crowd. Lyra stared at the artifact, then at her own feet. She was still alive. The world was still there. Elias let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "This isn't over," the elder said quietly. Elias nodded. "No," he agreed. "But now, for the first time, it's not decided either." Lyra looked at him. Fear and wonder mixed together. What happens now? Elias met her gaze, steady and calm. "Now," he said, "we learn what happens when someone refuses to accept that suffering is the only answer." Above them, the gray sky remained silent, watching as an ancient pattern began. Finally, the air around the platform felt heavier after the first day. The artifact had dimmed, but it still held a quiet presence, a calm that was also powerful. Lyra stayed close to the human. Elias, though she did not touch him, she felt a strange mix of fear, relief, and curiosity. Nothing she had learned about duty or destiny prepared her for this feeling. She had always known her path. She had never considered an alternative. The other species were not silent anymore. Whispers moved like wind among the pillars. Many of them did not understand the human, and few trusted him. He was an outsider, a weak one in their eyes, who had refused the most sacred tradition. But some of the younger observers looked at Lyra differently now, questioning long-held beliefs. The human had opened a door that no one else had dared to touch. Elias did not mind the attention. He had expected skepticism. He had expected anger. He had not expected change. Yet that was exactly what he saw beginning. He approached the platform carefully, studying the artifact's surface. Its light was softer now, slower, less reactive. It seemed almost curious, as if it were studying him back. Lyra watched him closely.
"You were not afraid of it?"
she asked quietly. Elias shook his head. "I am not afraid of it," he said. "It is strange. Yes, powerful, yes. But fear does not solve anything. People let fear control them. They make sacrifices because they think it is the only way. But fear is not a law." Lyra tilted her head, thinking. She had been taught to honor fear, to respect it, to obey it. Her teachers had always said that fear protected life, that it kept civilization safe. Elias's words felt strange, almost dangerous, but also strangely freeing. "What should I do?" she asked. Her voice was low. "I do not want to fail anyone."
You already have not failed, Elias replied.
You just need to understand the artifact. You need to see what it truly wants, not what your people tell you it wants. The artifact pulsed slightly at the mention of desire. Elias noticed the pattern. Its light changed faster when they spoke of duty and sacrifice. When they spoke of choice and questions, it slowed. It was not a being that wanted life or death. It reacted to belief. It fed uncertainty, not energy. The elder, still standing a few steps away, frowned deeply. "Human, you speak nonsense," he said. "The artifact has always required the offering. Do you think your words can change centuries of truth?" "I don't know if words alone can do it," Elias said, "but actions can. Thinking can. Refusing can." A small movement stirred behind the crowd. A young alien, smaller than most observers, stepped closer. His scales shimmered softly, a pale green. He looked at Lyra. and then at Elias. He whispered something to another observer, and soon a few others nodded quietly. Change was beginning. It was slow, but it had started. Lyra felt her chest tighten. She had never been asked to make a choice like this. Her whole life, she had been taught that sacrifice was the only way to be strong. But now, she could see another path. It was frightening. It was confusing. Now I am, and yet it made her feel alive in a way she had never known. Can we stop it? She asked softly. Can the artifact really be stopped without giving myself? Elias knelt slightly, careful to be at her level. I think we can, he said, but not alone. It is old and clever. It has survived many attempts because everyone played by its rules. We need to play differently. We need to think differently. And we need to feel differently. Lyra listened, her mind working fast. She could feel the artifact's presence, not pressing, not forcing, but waiting. It had always demanded a price, but now it seemed hesitant, unsure. Could it sense doubt? Could it sense choice? The elder moved closer to Lyra.
You do not understand, he said, his voice sharp.
Sacrifice is not weakness. It is strength. Only through offering yourself can the artifact be neutralized. That is the law of balance. Maybe the law is wrong, Elias said. Maybe balance is not about giving life. Maybe balance is about understanding. The elder's eyes widened. He had never heard this logic. Many species feared humans because they acted differently. They did not follow tradition blindly. They questioned, they doubted, they looked for other ways. To the elder, this was dangerous. Elias stood and looked at the artifact. He studied the lines of light inside it, moving like invisible rivers.
It reacts to emotion, he said. Fear, obedience, certainty.
All of these make it stronger, but curiosity, choice, and compassion weaken it. The artifact pulsed faster as he spoke, and then slower. It was listening, responding, but not attacking. Elias realized that it had never faced someone like this before, someone who refused to obey and yet did not fight. Lyra stepped closer to Elias. If we do this together, she said, I will try, but I am afraid. Good, Elias said gently. Fear is honest.
It will help us understand it.
But we will not let it control you, not anymore. Together, they walked slowly toward the platform. The observers held their breath. Many of them expected failure. Others were curious. Some wanted to stop them. But no one moved. They waited. Lyra raised her hands above the artifact. She did not touch it. She let her presence be known. A light inside it flickered. It was aware. Ilias mirrored her stance, standing beside her. He closed his eyes for a moment, focusing on calm and understanding. He sent no fear, no doubt, only clarity. The artifact pulsed once, twice. Then the soft lines inside it began to change. They moved slower, less erratic, almost peaceful. A murmur ran through the crowd. No one had seen this before. The artifact had always demanded action, always demanded fear, always demanded obedience. But now it seemed quiet. Lyra opened her eyes and smiled slightly. It was a small smile, but it was real. She had never smiled at this place before. Can it really listen? She whispered. It can, Elias said. It is not alive in the way we are, but it responds. And it responds to people who refuse to be afraid? The elder stepped forward again. This cannot last, he said. It is unnatural. "You are interfering with destiny." "Destiny is only what we make it," Elias replied. "And sometimes the greatest act of strength is saying no to what seems inevitable." The artifact pulsed again, but slower, softer. Its power had not vanished, but it was no longer demanding a price. For the first time in centuries, the ritual was optional. Lyra felt a new feeling rising inside her. It was courage, but not the kind that came from duty. It was courage that came from choice. She could choose her path. Aha! She could live. She could help others without giving herself away. The young aliens in the crowd looked at her with wide eyes. One whispered to another. Soon, more began to approach the platform. They did not know why, but they felt hope. Elias noticed them and nodded quietly. Change was spreading. The artifact was not just reacting to Lyra and him. It was reacting to everyone who dared to question old beliefs. Lyra took a deep breath. She had been ready to die, ready to fulfill a role she did not choose. Now she was ready to live, ready to act, and ready to learn. Elias placed a hand lightly on the edge of the platform, not touching the artifact itself, just showing presence. He felt warmth, not danger. "Whatever happens next," he said, "we do it together. Not because we are told to, but because we want to. Because we care. That is stronger than fear." Lyra nodded. She could feel it too. The artifact was no longer the master of destiny here. It was only a challenge, a puzzle, a presence waiting to be understood. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt hope. Not a duty-bound hope, not a hope tied to fear, but a real hope that she could choose, that she could live, and that she could change the world without giving herself away. The elder looked at her, then at Elias, then back at the artifact. He frowned deeply, unsure of what to do. He had never seen choice defeat centuries of tradition. He had never seen courage grow without blood. The artifact pulsed softly, almost as if it were tired of waiting. It was waiting for something new, something that had never happened before. Lyra looked at Elias and smiled again, stronger this time. "We will figure this out," she said. "We can do it together." Elias smiled back.
Yes, he said, we can.
"And maybe others will learn from us too." Around them the observers whispered and moved slowly closer. Change had begun. It was quiet, gentle, but unstoppable. And for the first time the ancient world did not feel gray. It felt alive. The sky had begun to lighten slightly, though the gray color of the ancient world remained. There was no sun, but the horizon glowed faintly as though the planet itself was breathing. Lyra and Elias remained close to the artifact, watching its slow, quiet movements. Its lines of light moved like gentle rivers inside a stone lake. It no longer demanded a price, but it was still powerful, still ancient, still alive in its own strange way. The air around them hummed softly. It was not a sound that humans or aliens could hear clearly, but it pressed against the mind. It seemed to measure their thoughts, feeling for certainty and fear, joy and curiosity. Elias understood that this presence had survived centuries because it had learned to respond only to the strongest emotions. Most beings gave it fear. Most beings obeyed it. But now Elias and Lyra offered it something different, choice and understanding. Lyra stared at her hands. She could still feel the tension of her people's expectations. She had been raised to believe her life was a tool, that her purpose was a key to the artifact's destruction. Yet now, with Elias at her side, she realized she could be more than a tool. She could be a person, free to act, free to think, free to choose. The thought filled her with a strange warmth. "Do you think it can understand us?" she asked quietly. "I think it can," Elias said. "Not like we understand each other, but enough to notice patterns, enough to see when people refuse to act out of fear." The elder moved closer, his step slow and heavy. "This is dangerous," he said, his voice low but firm. "It is not designed to be questioned. It is designed to demand. Do you realize what you risk?" Elias shook his head. "I understand risk," he said. "But the risk is not ours alone. The risk is in obeying fear without thinking." The elder's eyes narrowed, and several other observers whispered to each other. Many of them still believed sacrifice was the only answer. But others hesitated. They had seen what happened the day before. The artifact had responded to choice. It had listened, at least in some way. Lyra stepped closer to the platform. She did not touch the artifact, but she let herself be present. The artifact pulsed softly, almost like it was breathing with her. Elias knelt slightly beside her, careful not to frighten her or make her feel controlled. He had learned that calmness, not force, was stronger in this place. "You are ready," he said gently. "Not because someone told you, but because you decided it." Lyra nodded slowly. Her heart beat fast. She was ready, but not for what she had thought before. She was ready to learn, to observe, to act with understanding rather than duty. The artifact's light moved more quickly now, as if noticing their emotions more clearly. Ilias studied it carefully. "It responds to belief," he said. "When people think sacrifice is necessary, it strengthens. When people think choice is possible, it weakens. It is not alive like us, but it can sense intent." Lyra frowned. "Then why has no one else stopped it before?" "Because no one else questioned it," Elias said. "No one else dared to refuse the path they were taught. Most beings see rules and obey without thinking. They never consider other ways." A soft wind stirred the platform, though no wind should have existed here. It moved lightly across their skin, carrying a faint scent like wet stone. Lyra shivered slightly. "It is watching us," she said. "Yes," Elias replied, "and it is learning too." The elder spoke again, his voice low but trembling slightly. "Do you think you can control it with words?" "I don't want to control it," Elias said. "I want to understand it. I want it to respond to reason and care, not fear." The artifact pulsed again, brighter this time. Lines of light inside it moved faster, almost like small waves. Elias watched carefully. "It reacts when we speak of fear and certainty."
When we speak of hope and choice, it slows. Lyra tried a small experiment.
She raised her hand slightly toward the light, not touching it, just moving near it. The lines of light inside the artifact shifted and slowed. She withdrew her hand slowly, noticing the change. "It is listening," she whispered.
"Yes," Elias said, "and it is responding."
"But it is cautious. It will not act unless it is certain." Lyra took a deep breath. For the first time she felt not fear, but curiosity. She could see that the artifact was not evil. It was ancient, yes, and powerful, yes, but it was only following patterns that others had given it. It had learned that fear and sacrifice were the strongest signals. No one had ever offered it hope or choice. "Can it be stopped?" she asked. "Without anyone giving themselves?" "Yes," Elias said. "We can show it another way. We can teach it that fear and sacrifice are not the only truths. That strength can be found in choice and care. The elder shook his head slowly. This is impossible.
You cannot unteach centuries of history in moments. We don't need to unteach history, Elias said.
We only need to show another possibility. The artifact pulsed again. This time, the lines of light moved differently. They spread outward slowly, as if observing the humans and aliens near it. Lyra could feel a strange warmth inside her chest. It was not from the artifact itself, but from the knowledge that she could act differently. She could make a decision that was not required of her, and that was powerful. She looked at the gathered observers. Many of them had stepped closer now, curious. Some whispered to each other. A few shook their heads in disbelief. But the younger observers looked hopeful. They had never imagined that there could be another way. Lyra raised her voice slightly. "It does not need me to give myself," she said. "It can change if we change our thinking, if we act with care, not fear." A few of the older aliens muttered in surprise. One of them, a tall being with pale green skin, stepped forward. "You speak boldly," he said, "but are you sure it will respond?" Elias smiled slightly. "I am not sure," he admitted, "but we have to try. Nothing will change if we do nothing." The artifact's light pulsed again, brighter this time. It moved like water, slow and careful. Testing the air around it, Elias felt that it had never seen a being act with calm courage before. Most beings came with fear or obedience. Few came with understanding and choice. Lyra moved closer to Elias. "What do we do next?" she asked. "We observe," he said. "We show it care. We show it that we are not afraid. And we wait for it to understand." The platform remained quiet, except for the soft hum of the artifact. Time seemed to stretch. Minutes felt like hours, yet no one moved away. They waited. They watched. They listened. Slowly, the lines of light inside the artifact began to move in new patterns. They did not pulse with fear. They did not demand sacrifice. They seemed curious. Lyra could feel it in her chest. A new possibility was forming. She was not required to give herself. She was not required to obey an old rule. She could act, she could think, and she could learn. The younger observers stepped closer, some reaching their hands toward the platform. They did not touch it, but their presence added to the energy. Hope and choice were being offered instead of fear and duty. The elder watched, his expression unreadable. "This is unusual," he said. "Perhaps even dangerous, or perhaps necessary," Elias replied. "Sometimes the strongest change comes from the quietest courage. Sometimes refusing to obey fear is the most powerful act of all." Lyra smiled again. It was wider now, a real smile of relief and curiosity. She felt lighter than she had in her whole life. She had been ready to die for a cause she did not choose. Now, she was ready to live for a cause she could define herself. The artifact pulsed once more, softer, slower. Its lines of light moved gently, like rivers at dawn. It was not finished, but it was listening. It was aware. And for the first time it had a new teacher, two beings who acted with courage, choice, and care instead of fear. Elias placed a hand lightly on Lyra's shoulder. "We will continue," he said. "We will keep showing it another way. And we will not be afraid. That is all it needs." Lyra nodded. "We can do it," she said softly. Around them, the platform seemed to breathe with quiet energy. The observers whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some hopeful. But no one could deny the change. The artifact had reacted. The impossible had begun. For the first time, Lyra understood what Elias had meant. Strength was not only in sacrifice. Strength was in choice. Strength was in courage without fear. And the artifact, ancient and powerful, was learning that truth for the first time. The gray sky above the platform had begun to change slowly, shifting from heavy stone gray to a lighter, soft shade. The air was still, yet it seemed alive, almost aware. The artifact pulsed softly, but this time it was calm. It no longer demanded sacrifice. It no longer fed on fear. It seemed to observe the beings around it quietly, curiously, as though testing the world anew. Lyra stood beside Elias, her chest still tight with excitement and relief. She had never felt so alive. For the first time, she was not bound by duty. She was not forced to accept a role she had never chosen. She had a choice, and she was learning what that meant. "Do you think it will stay quiet?" she asked softly, her eyes fixed on the glowing lines of the artifact. Elias shook his head. "I don't know if it will ever be completely quiet," he said. "It is ancient and clever, but it will not demand what it cannot have. It can only respond. And right now, it is responding to something new." The elder stood a few steps behind them, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. "You have changed it," he said slowly. "But how can that be? It has existed for centuries. Every civilization obeyed it without question. Why should it respond to you?" Elias looked at him calmly. "Because we did not obey out of fear," he said. "We acted with understanding, curiosity, and care. That is something it has never experienced. You cannot force change, but you can show it the way." Lyra raised her hand slightly, and the lines inside the artifact moved gently toward her palm. She did not touch it, but she felt the warmth and the quiet presence. A gentle power that did not demand life, but only observation. She smiled. "It listens," she said. "Yes," Elias agreed. "And it learns slowly but surely. We just need to continue." A few of the younger aliens stepped forward. They had been watching everything in silence, but now they felt hope. One, a small being with silver scales, reached toward the platform and whispered, "It feels different."
It is. Calm. Yes, Lyra said softly.
"It is different because we do not fear it, because we refuse to obey fear without thought. We are showing it another way," the elder frowned, uncertain. "This is dangerous," he said. "You are breaking rules that have existed for generations. You are changing the laws of balance." "Or maybe the laws were wrong," Elias replied. "Balance does not always require sacrifice. Strength does not always require fear. Sometimes balance comes from understanding, from choice, and from courage that does not obey old patterns blindly." The artifact pulsed again, slow and steady. It was quiet now, but the soft hum it gave off seemed to fill the platform. Lyra felt the vibration in her chest. It was not threatening. It was not demanding. It was observing, waiting, learning.
"You can speak to it," Elias said.
"Not with words it understands, but with your presence. Show it what choice feels like. Show it courage without fear." Lyra nodded. She closed her eyes briefly and took a slow breath. She sent calmness into the air around the artifact. She focused on her own choice, her own decision to live, to act, and to care. She imagined other beings on the platform feeling the same calm, the same hope. The lines of light inside the artifact shifted, slowly, almost imperceptibly. Elias watched closely. "It is reacting," he whispered. "It is learning the meaning of choice." The elder stepped forward cautiously. "I do not understand," he admitted. "How can this small act change something so ancient?"
"Because nothing changes if we do not try," Elias said.
Sometimes the smallest act of courage can break cycles that have lasted centuries. Around the platform, more observers stepped closer, inspired by Lyra and Elias. They did not touch the artifact, but their presence added weight to the calm energy. Fear was no longer the strongest force in the area. Understanding and choice were. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a strength she had never known. She had been ready to give herself away, ready to die for a cause she had never chosen. Now she realized she could live and help others in ways no one had ever imagined. She could change the course of history without sacrificing herself. Elias placed a hand lightly on the platform, careful not to disturb the artifact, only to show calm presence. "It is not power that changes the world," he said. "It is choice, courage, and care. Sometimes that is stronger than force." The artifact pulsed again, slower this time. Its light expanded, reaching gently toward the observers. Many stepped back in surprise. Some whispered softly, feeling the calm energy spreading. Others, who had doubted Elias from the start, felt a strange hope rising. The young silver-scaled observer reached forward again, and the artifact seemed to respond. Lyra smiled. "It listens to all of us now," she said. "Not just me or him, but everyone who acts with courage and choice." "Yes," Elias said, "it is learning that strength does not come from fear. It is learning that power does not require sacrifice. It can be changed, slowly, by understanding and presence." The elder looked around at the gathering. He was older, wiser, and deeply cautious. But even he could not deny the change. The artifact had reacted. The rules that had governed generations were no longer absolute. A new possibility had begun. Lyra felt her heart swell. She had been ready to die for a path she did not choose. Now she was alive, not because she had escaped duty, but because she had created a new path. She could act, learn, and grow. She could lead others without fear. The artifact pulsed again, slowly, as if resting. Its lines of light moved like gentle rivers, soft and steady. It was no longer demanding, no longer feeding on fear. It was observing, learning, waiting. Elias looked at Lyra and smiled. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We have shown it a new way, but the work is not done. We need to keep acting with courage and care. We need to keep teaching choice instead of fear." Lyra nodded. She felt strong, not because anyone had told her she was brave, but because she had chosen it herself. She could feel the energy around the platform changing, growing warmer, calmer, more alive. The younger observers stepped closer, inspired by Lyra and Elias. They whispered to each other, sharing hope. Some of the older beings muttered uncertain, but even they could not ignore the change. The artifact was no longer absolute. It had learned that belief could be shifted, that choice could exist, that courage could spread without sacrifice. "Do you think it will ever fully understand?" she asked. "I do not know," he said. "It may take a long time, but it has learned that fear and obedience are not the only paths. That is enough for now. That is enough to start real change." The elder watched in silence, his eyes softening. He had seen generations of sacrifice. Yet he could not deny the truth of what was happening. A new pattern had begun. A new law, one born of courage and choice, had entered the world. Lyra looked at the artifact one last time. She felt calm, not because it was safe, but because she had learned something far more powerful. Her life, her choice, and her courage mattered. She could help others, she could inspire, and she could live without fear. The artifact pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. It was no longer a threat, but a presence that could be understood. Lyra and Elias stepped away from the platform, side by side. They were not triumphant in the way of warriors, but in the quiet, steady way of those who had learned that courage without fear is the strongest force of all. Around them, the observers moved closer. Some whispered in amazement. Some laughed softly, unable to believe what had happened. A few younger beings raised their hands toward the artifact, not in fear, but in hope, offering choice, courage, and understanding. Lyra looked at Elias and smiled. "We did it," she said softly.
No, Elias said.
"We started it. The rest will follow. The world will learn what we have shown. And you will see, choice is stronger than sacrifice. Courage is stronger than fear." The elder finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "Perhaps there is a new way," he said. "Perhaps the old rules are not the only path." Lyra nodded. She had been ready to die, and now she was ready to live. She had chosen her own path, and she had changed history without fear. The artifact pulsed one final time that day, soft and slow, as if resting after learning something new. The sky above lightened just a little more. The gray had softened into a gentle hue, as if the world itself recognized the change. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling calm, strong, and alive. For the first time in her life, she knew what it meant to act with choice, to live without fear, and to inspire courage in others. Elias stood beside her, watching the artifact and the gathered beings. "This is what humans have always known," he said quietly. "Strength comes from choice, not fear. Power comes from courage, not sacrifice. The future belongs to those who dare to act with understanding." Lyra nodded, smiling. She felt hope, courage, and freedom all at once, and for the first time the world felt lighter, brighter, and alive. The artifact pulsed gently, quietly, as if it had finally learned the meaning of choice. And in that quiet, Lyra knew that the impossible had become real.